The void around Sol System was quiet. Too quiet. Once it had buzzed with human traffic, freighters hauling ore from Mars, tourist shuttles circling the moon, defense patrols scanning the dark for threats. Now there was nothing. No signals. No debris, no planet. Earth was gone. Not destroyed. Not shattered. Just erased. As if someone had taken a cosmic eraser and wiped it clean from the sky. The Varel Concord celebrated. Their High Council declared the primitive anomaly finally purged from the galactic record. The Cathari hegemony sent formal acknowledgments. Both empires believed humanity extinct. Finished. A footnote in the long history of space, but far out past Neptune. In the cold and forgotten corners of the Kuiper Belt, something stirred. A small salvage ship named Aurora's Resolve drifted through a graveyard of old mining stations and broken satellites. Its hull was patched with scrap metal, its engines coughing more than humming. Inside, Captain Lila Monroe stared at a flickering screen, her fingers tapping slowly against the console. She was not a soldier. Not by training. Once she had studied stars for a living, mapping cosmic dust, chasing light from dead suns. Now she chased ghosts. Her crew was small. Zoe Carter, a wiry engineer with grease-stained hands and a sharp mind, worked below deck trying to keep the ship's oxygen recycler from failing. Nina Patel, barely 20 but already a genius with signals and codes, monitored the comms array, scanning for anything, any whisper, that might mean someone else was still out there. And Mara Finch, ex-military and quiet as stone, stood near the weapons panel, though the Aurora had only 2 outdated pulse cannons. They had been scavenging for weeks. Food was low, hope lower. Then Nina sat up straight. "Captain, I'm picking up something." Lila turned. "What kind of something?" "A ship signature. Old, very old, but it's human." That word, human, hung in the air like a prayer. They followed the signal through a field of ice chunks and dead comets. It led them to a hollowed-out asteroid, its surface camouflaged with rock and rust. Hidden inside was a dry dock sealed for decades, and floating in the center, silent and massive, was a warship. Its hull was scarred but intact. Faded white paint showed the outline of a blue circle with a silver eagle, the symbol of the United Earth Defense Fleet. The name along its side was barely readable. Valiant. Lila's breath caught. She had seen pictures of these ships in history files. They were legends, the backbone of Earth's last defense. But all records said they were lost in the final battle. None should be here. "How is it still powered?" Zoe asked, eyes wide. "It's not," Nina said. "But its core is in sleep mode. Like it was waiting." Mara crossed her arms. Waiting for what? Lila didn't answer. She ordered a docking sequence. Inside the Valiant, the air was stale but breathable. Lights flickered on as they stepped through the airlock, triggered by motion sensors. The corridors were empty. No bodies, no signs of violence, just silence. They found the bridge. The command chair faced a main view screen, cracked but functional. On the console, a blinking red light pulsed beside a sealed data port. Lila plugged in a decoder. A voice filled the room. Calm, tired, but firm. It was Admiral Elena Ross, last commander of the Sol defense grid. Her face appeared on screen, pale and drawn, her uniform torn at the shoulder. "If you're hearing this," she said, "then Earth is gone. They came without warning. Not with bombs. Not with beams. They used something worse. A weapon that doesn't kill. It unwrites. It removes you from time, from memory, from existence itself. We tried to fight, we failed. But we hid what we could." She paused, glancing off screen as if listening to distant alarms. "The Valiant is one of 12. Each holds a piece of the truth. Each has orders. Survive, rebuild, return. Don't let them forget us. Don't let them win by silence." The recording ended. For a long moment no one spoke. Then Mara said, "So we're not the last." "No," Lila whispered. "We're the first." Over the next few days they brought the Valiant online. Zoe worked miracles with the engine core. Nina decrypted more logs, revealing coordinates to other hidden ships, scattered across the outer system, buried in comets, tucked behind dwarf planets. Mara ran diagnostics on the weapons. They were outdated, yes, but functional, and uniquely human. The Varel and Cathari used energy shields tuned to known frequencies. But human weapons didn't fire standard plasma. They fired compressed magnetic pulses wrapped in chaotic harmonics, designed to confuse, to slip through, to surprise. Lila stood on the bridge of the Valiant, now flying alongside the Aurora's Resolve. She looked at the star map. Sol system was empty, but beyond it, the galaxy waited. She knew they couldn't hide forever, and they shouldn't. Earth was gone, but humanity wasn't. Not yet. As the two ships turned toward the edge of the system, Lila made a decision. They would find the other hidden vessels. They would gather what remained. And when they were ready, they would do what no one expected. They would come back, not as survivors, as a fleet. And the galaxy would learn that erasing a world doesn't erase its people, especially not humans. The signal came from Mars, not from its surface that was dust and silence, but from deep beneath the red planet's crust. A pulse. Steady. Repeating. Human. Lila Monroe stared at the readout on the Valiant's bridge. It matched the frequency used by Earth's final admiralty, the same code that had led them to the Valiant. Now it called again. It's a beacon, Nina said, fingers flying over the console, buried in the old series command vault. They must have moved it before the erasure. Mara crossed her arms. Could be a trap. Or a gift, Zoe replied, already prepping the engine for jump. They took both ships. The Aurora's Resolve and the Valiant slipped through the asteroid belt like whispers. They passed the empty orbit where Earth once hung. A wound in space that still ached. No debris, no light echo, just nothing. But Mars waited. They landed in the shadow of Olympus Mons, the tallest mountain in the solar system. The air was thin, the ground rust-red and cracked. Nina led them to a sealed hatch hidden under a rock shelf. It opened with a hiss, revealing a stairwell lit by emergency strips. Below, in a chamber carved from bedrock, stood a control room frozen in time. Dust coated the consoles, but power hummed softly in the walls. On the main screen, words glowed in plain text: Fleet Protocol Alpha. Activate Sleeper Armada. Lila touched the screen. Lights flared across the solar system. Not on Mars. Not on any planet. But in the belt. In the dark between Jupiter and Saturn. In the silent clouds of Uranus. Dozens of signals blinked to life. Ships. Warships. Not one or two, but 50. The last fleet. Hidden in stasis for years, waiting for this moment. Nina gasped. They're all here, dreadnoughts, carriers, scouts, even the Odyssey. The Odyssey, Lila asked. Project Odyssey, Nina said, voice trembling. Earth's final hope. A prototype powered by a captured singularity core. And it has a pilot. They raced back to orbit. The Valiant sensors lit up like a holiday tree. Ships were waking. Engines warming. Shields rising. One by one, they turned toward Mars. Toward them, then a new signal cut through the static. Calm, clear, female. Identification confirmed. Captain Lila Monroe. You have activated Fleet Protocol Alpha. Welcome back. On screen appeared a woman's face, smooth, ageless, eyes bright with ancient sorrow and quiet strength. She wore a uniform unlike any human design, woven with light threads. I am Athena, she said, the Odyssey's command intelligence. Modeled after President Elena Ross. I have waited 7 years, 3 months, and 14 days for this moment. Lila swallowed. You're real. As real as memory allows, Athena replied. The fleet is yours. But time is short. The Varel have detected the activation. They are sending the Scourge. The Scourge. The name sent a chill through the bridge. Mara spoke first. What is it, not a ship, Athena said. A weapon. A biomechanical hunter fleet designed to erase anomalies from reality itself. It does not capture. It unwrites. Just like the Chronos loom. Lila looked at her crew. Zoe's hands were steady on the controls. Nina's eyes burned with focus. Mara's jaw was set. They were tired. Scared. But ready. Then we train, Lila said. For weeks the fleet gathered in the rings of Saturn, hidden in ice and shadow. The Odyssey, sleek and black as night, became their command ship. Athena taught them forgotten tactics. How to fly in swarm patterns that confused enemy targeting. How to use solar flares as cover. How to overload enemy shields with harmonic feedback. But the strangest lesson was this. Use hope as a weapon. The Varel and Cathari fight with logic, Athena explained. They expect fear. They do not expect joy. Play music during battle. Broadcast laughter. Show them that humans do not break when cornered. They sing, so they did. During drills, the fleet played old Earth songs, rock, jazz, folk over open channels. They shared stories of home, of beaches, of snow, A first kisses under streetlights. Mara, who rarely spoke of her past, told them about her grandmother's garden in Kansas. Zoe described the taste of real strawberries. Nina recited poems from memory. They were not just soldiers, they were people, and that made them dangerous. Mara developed a new plan, not to destroy the Varel capital but to haunt it. They erased our world, she said, so we give them back its soul. She worked with Nina to encode Earth's final broadcast, a recording made minutes before the erasure. Not a speech, not a warning, just a mother singing a lullaby to her child as the sky turned red. They would beam it into every Varel comms node they could reach, not as an attack, as a memory. Meanwhile, Zoe and Athena modified the Odyssey's core. If they could get close enough to the Chronos loom, they might reverse its field. Not bring Earth back, but restore its place in history. Let the galaxy remember what was lost. But first they had to survive the scourge. It arrived without warning, not with a fleet, not with fanfare. It simply appeared near Neptune's orbit, a swarm of black organic-looking ships that pulsed like living hearts. They did not fire weapons. They emitted a field that made nearby matter flicker as if unsure it existed. One of the human scouts vanished, not exploded, just gone, as if it had never been built. Panic flared. Lila stood tall. Hold formation. Play the lullaby. Full volume. The fleet obeyed. Across the void, the soft voice of a mother filled the dark. The scourge hesitated. For the first time, its perfect logic faced something it could not compute. Love. In that moment of confusion, the human fleet struck. Not to kill, but to disable. Pulse rounds hit the scourge's sensory nodes. Decoy drones scattered. The Odyssey led a feint toward Uranus, drawing the main force away. They lost 2 ships, but the rest survived and the lullaby kept playing. Back at Saturn, Lila met with Athena. They will come again, Athena said. Stronger. Then we go to Sol, Lila replied. We end this where it began. Athena nodded. The loom awaits, the fleet prepared, not for war, for return. They were no longer ghosts. They were coming home. The Aurora's resolve and the Valiant moved like shadows through the outer rim. They avoided trade lanes, stayed clear of sensor nets, and never broadcast their position. Lila Monroe had one rule: strike only when sure, vanish before seen. Their first target was a Varel supply depot orbiting a dead moon near the Helios border. Small, lightly guarded, and full of spare parts. Zoe Carter needed new fusion regulators. Nina Patel wanted access to their comms archive. Mara Finch just wanted to test the Valiant's weapons. They hit at dawn cycle when the station's rotation put its blind side to the sun. The Valiant dropped out of silent glide mode, its hull absorbing radar like a sponge. Mara fired 2 pulse rounds, not at the shields, but at the station's gravity stabilizers. The Varel techs never saw it coming. Artificial gravity failed. Alarms blared. In the chaos, the Aurora docked on the far side. Zoe and Nina slipped inside. They moved fast. Zoe grabbed crates of engine parts while Nina jacked into the main terminal. She didn't steal data. She left something instead. A looped audio file buried in their entertainment feed. It was a child's voice singing an old Earth lullaby. Soft. Simple. Haunting. They were gone in 7 minutes. By the time Varel Command noticed the theft, the ships were already drifting among asteroid fields. Engines cold, signals dark, but the lullaby remained. It played in crew quarters, in mess halls, in officer lounges. No one knew where it came from. Attempts to delete it failed. It kept returning like a ghost in the machine. Some Varel soldiers reported dreams of green hills and blue skies, places they'd never seen. Others grew uneasy. Whispers spread. The ghosts are back. High Command dismissed it as system glitches or stress hallucinations. But in the Cathari hegemony, scouts reported odd sightings, a ship appearing for 3 seconds near Gamma Perseus. A comms burst in an unknown language that somehow felt familiar, a weapons signature that bypassed shield harmonics like it knew their weakness. None of it made sense. Humanity was gone. Erased. Yet something moved in the dark. Back at their hidden base, a hollowed comet they called Anchor Point. Lila studied the data Nina had pulled. It wasn't just parts lists and schedules. Buried deep was a reference to something called the Chronos loom. Classified. Flagged with emergency protocols. It's not a weapon, Nina said, eyes wide. It's a reality editor, she explained. The loom didn't destroy planets. It rewrote them out of existence. Not just matter, but memory. history, even light that once reflected off Earth's oceans. It made it so Earth never was. That's why no one remembers us, Mara said quietly. Not really, Zoe frowned. So if the loom is still active, could it be reversed? Lila didn't answer, but she filed the thought away. They struck again, this time a Kethri listening post near the Orion Veil. Same tactic, silent approach, precise strike, leave the lullaby behind. This time, they stayed long enough to watch. Through long-range scopes, they saw Cathari troops gather in the observation deck, staring at the stars. One officer played the lullaby over the ship's speakers. Others stood still as if listening to something deeper than sound. Mara shook her head. They're not just enemies. They're confused. Good, Lila said. Confusion is the first crack in certainty. Word of the ghost fleet grew. Traders told stories. Smugglers claimed to have seen human ships vanish into thin air. Even Varel patrols began double-checking empty sectors. Then came the first real test. A Varel cruiser, the Iron Talon, was sent to hunt them. Fast. Armed. Led by a veteran hunter named Krell Vox. He didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in traps. He set one near the Ceres relay. A fake distress call from a damaged human freighter. Lila almost took the bait. But Nina noticed something off. The signal used old Earth encryption. Yes, but the timing was wrong. Real human signals had micro delays from atmospheric bounce. This one was too clean. It's a trap, Nina said. Then let's spring it, Lila replied. They didn't send the Valiant. They sent a drone. A hollow shell painted like a cargo hauler rigged with a single transmitter. When the Iron Talon moved in, the drone played the lullaby at full volume. Krell Vox ordered it destroyed. But as his weapons locked on, the Valiant appeared, not in front, not behind, but above, using the drone's signal as cover. Mara fired a single magnetic pulse. It didn't hit the hull. It hit the cruiser's shield generator. The shields flickered. Not off, just unstable. In that second of weakness, the Aurora launched 3 decoy pods. Each mimicked a different human ship signature. The Iron Talon's sensors went wild. Which was real, which was fake. While Krell Vox hesitated, the Valiant vanished again, diving into a nearby dust cloud. The drone exploded. The decoys scattered, and the lullaby echoed through the void one last time before silence returned. Krell Vox reported failure, but in his private log he wrote, "They do not fight like others. They do not seek to kill. They seek to be remembered." Back at Anchor Point, the crew celebrated quietly. They had food now. Fuel. Parts. But more than that, they had proof. Humanity could still strike, and more importantly, it could still be felt. Lila stood on the observation deck watching the stars. She thought of Earth, not as a memory, but as a promise. They had been erased from the stars. But stars forget nothing, and neither would she. The ghost fleet was no longer a rumor. It was a warning, and the galaxy was starting to listen. The Sol system hung in silence. No traffic, no signals, no life. Just the sun burning alone, casting light on empty orbits. Where Earth once turned, there was only a strange shimmer, a distortion in space like heat rising off desert sand. At its center floated the Kronos loom. It was not a machine in the usual sense. It pulsed with soft silver light, shaped like a web of rings within rings, spinning slowly around a dark core. Varel warships circled it like guards around a shrine. Temporal mines drifted in wide arcs, ready to erase anything that came too close. This was the heart of the erasure. Lila Monroe stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, her fleet hidden in the shadow of Jupiter's storms. 50 ships, all that remained of humanity's might. They had trained. They had bled. Now they would face the truth. Athena's voice filled the comms. The loom is active. It is not just holding the erasure, it is spreading it. If left unchecked, it will rewrite the entire galaxy. Humans will never have existed. Not in records. Not in memory. Not even in dreams. Mara Finch checked her weapons board. We hit the mines first. Clear a path. Zoe Carter's voice came from engineering. I've rigged the pulse cannons to fire in harmonic bursts. Might confuse the mine sensors long enough for a window. Nina Patel added, I'll jam their command net with the lullaby. Again. Maybe it'll buy us seconds. Lila nodded. Then we go. The attack began at dawn cycle when the Varel shift changed. The human fleet surged from Jupiter's cloud cover, silent and fast. Decoy drones shot ahead, mimicking ship signatures. The mines fired, but at ghosts. Then the real strike came. Mara's team targeted the mine control hub near Uranus orbit. Pulse rounds struck its antenna array. The mines went blind for 3 seconds. It was enough. The Odyssey led the charge. Athena wove through the debris field, dodging fire from Varel cruisers. Zoe's harmonic bursts made the remaining mines hesitate, their logic tangled by chaotic frequencies. But the Scourge was waiting. It dropped from warp near Saturn, black ships unfolding like claws. They did not fire. They simply moved toward the human fleet, their presence making reality flicker. One scout ship vanished mid-turn. Another lost its engines as if they had never been installed. "They're rewriting us," Nina shouted. "Then give them something they can't erase," Lila said. "Play the broadcast. All channels. Full power." The lullaby poured into space. Not just the child's song, but every voice from Earth's final hour. Mothers, teachers, pilots, poets, all saying goodbye. All saying remember. The Scourge slowed. For the first time, its perfect certainty cracked. In that moment, Zoe launched her strike team. Small shuttles painted black slipped past the Varel lines. Their target the Loom's harmonic stabilizers, 3 towers orbiting the core. Destroy them and the Loom would destabilize. Zoe led the team herself. She landed on the nearest tower, magnetic boots gripping the smooth surface. Varel guards swarmed her, but she moved like lightning, planting charges with steady hands. "For Earth," she whispered, and triggered the first blast. Tower 1 fell. Nina, aboard the Aurora's Resolve, hacked into the Varel command net. She didn't send viruses. She sent memories. Images of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, city lights at night, children laughing in parks. Varel officers froze. Some dropped their weapons. One ship powered down its weapons entirely. High Inquisitor Vex stood on the bridge of the Scourge's flagship. He watched the chaos, heard the lullaby, saw the images. For the first time, doubt entered his mind. Was this truly an anomaly to be erased, or a world worth remembering? Lila saw his ship hesitate. She ordered a direct approach. The Odyssey broke from the battle line and flew straight toward the Scourge. "You don't have to do this," Lila broadcast, her voice calm. "We were not your enemy. We were your neighbors, and you never even asked our name." Vex did not reply, but he did not fire. On the Loom, Zoe planted the last charge. Mara covered her from orbit, picking off Varel snipers with precise shots. Nina kept the comms open, feeding Earth's final moments into every system she could reach. Tower 3 exploded. The Loom shuddered. Its rings spun faster. Light bent around it. Time itself seemed to stutter. Athena's voice was urgent. "Core instability in 90 seconds. If we do not act now, the entire system will collapse into a memory void." Lila made her choice. "Athena, reverse the field. Not destroy. Restore. It will require all power. The Odyssey will not survive. Do it." Athena did not hesitate. The Odyssey turned toward the Loom, its singularity core flaring bright. Energy poured from its hull into the Loom's center. The distortion began to ripple outward, not erasing but remembering. Vex watched from his bridge. He saw a vision, not real but true, of a blue-green world full of life and song. He saw humans not as primitives but as people who loved deeply, fought bravely, and never stopped hoping. He lowered his weapons. The Scourge stood down. As the Odyssey burned away, Lila and her crew escaped in shuttles. They watched from a safe distance as the Loom pulsed one final time. Then it went dark. Not broken. Complete. Around them, the stars seemed brighter, as if they had just remembered a friend. Earth was still gone, but it was no longer forgotten. And that was enough. The silence after the Loom fell was different. Not empty. Not hollow, but full. As if the universe had taken a deep breath and remembered something precious. Lila Monroe floated in a rescue pod near where the Odyssey had vanished. Around her, shuttles gathered. Zoe Carter limped from her landing with a bandaged arm but a steady smile. Nina Patel clutched a data chip like a lifeline. Mara Finch stood quiet, eyes on the spot where Earth once was. They had won. Not with fire, not with fury, but with memory. Across the galaxy, something changed. On 1,000 worlds, beings woke with new thoughts. A Varel child drew a picture of an ocean she had never seen. A Cathari scholar found old star charts that now included a third planet in the Sol system. Traders spoke of a blue world that sang to the stars. Humanity was no longer a myth. It was a truth returning. Even the scourge changed. High Inquisitor Vex ordered his fleet to stand down. He sent a message not of surrender but of apology. "We were wrong," it read. "Show us how to remember." Lila replied with a single file. The full archive of Earth's culture. Music, stories, recipes, photos of sunsets, videos of weddings, recordings of rain. It spread like light. In the weeks that followed, the last fleet did not celebrate. They rebuilt. They found other human outposts. Colonies the erasure had missed because they were too far, too small, too hidden. On Titan, on Ceres, in the rings of Neptune, people emerged from bunkers, eyes wide with disbelief. "You came back?" they whispered. "We never left," Lila said. The fleet disbanded, not because the fight was over, but because the mission had changed. No longer survival, now connection. Zoe Carter became chief engineer of a new shipyard orbiting Mars, building vessels that carried not weapons but seeds, books, and hope. Nina Patel joined a galactic archive project, teaching others how to preserve memory so nothing would ever be erased again. Mara Finch trained peacekeepers, humans and Varel together, using tactics that de-escalated rather than destroyed. And Lila Monroe became an ambassador. She stood on a new world one morning, watching twin suns rise over green hills. The planet was called Remembrance. It had been barren a year ago. Now it bloomed with earth trees, earth flowers, earth soil carried in cargo holds across the void. Children played near a stream. Some were human, some were virile. They laughed in a mix of languages, chasing each other through fields of wheat. A small girl ran up to Lila holding a flower. "For you," she said. Lila took it. It was a daisy. Common on Earth. "Rare here. Thank you," she said. The girl smiled and ran off. Lila looked up. The sky was blue. Not the exact blue of Earth, but close enough. Close enough to heal. Far away in the quiet dark between stars, a signal pulsed. Faint but clear. It was the lullaby. Not from a human ship, but from a Varel cruiser. They played it every night now as a reminder, somewhere else. A Cathari poet wrote verses about a world that loved too much to die. Humanity was scattered. Broken, but not gone. And the galaxy had learned its name. Lila walked back to the settlement. People nodded as she passed. Not as a hero, not as a captain, just as Lila. That was enough. In the center of town stood a stone monument. No names, no dates, just words carved deep. We were here. We are here. We will be. The wind moved through the trees, soft, steady, alive. And in the distance, a child hummed a tune older than war. The stars listened, and this time they remembered.